Your station, 101 FM, with Saturday Sports Scene.
Good morning and welcome to Sports Scene for another week. Kevin Braysher here with you as always. We'll take you through all the latest and greatest news and sports. Jam-packed show as we have every week for you right here on 101 FM. Joining us on the show this morning, the founding father of Sports Scene, Mr. Darren Madigan. Darren, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, everybody. Another huge week in sport, especially off the field, and the Asada report, as we know, came out, and nobody gets to see it. So sad, so sorry. Even James Hird apparently hasn't been able to see it. So apparently there's lawsuits flying around from all sorts of people. So we'll find out more about that, obviously, as the next week or two rolls on. But other things that have come out this week, we've got the Athletics World Championships coming up this weekend, and really there's only one person left to worry about, I think, and that's Usain Bolt. So I reckon we let him race over 100 metres all by himself and see whether he can break the record. We'll just call it the Usain Bolt Memorial Race or something like that, because I've got a feeling by the time all this is over and done with, he could be the only person left who's clean.
Last man standing.
It's getting a bit like that, and it's getting really, really sad. He actually quoted not long ago saying that if I ever get done, Jamaica will die. I thought that was probably going a bit over the top, although they do love their sport just like we do here in Australia. And obviously the big news during the week, which we'll cover from my point of view in netball and that, when we speak to Paula Stewart later in the show, is Nat Medhurst. The rumour became reality, and she goes to the West Coast Fever on a 2-year deal. What is going on at the Firebirds?
Well, we will talk all about that at 9:45 when we get Paula Stewart on the line. As you say, mate, there's plenty going on at the Firebirds at the moment. That's what we will discuss. Also joining us on the show this morning from the QRL, Mr. Ethan James. Ethan, welcome back to Sports Scene, mate.
Morning, Kev. Good to be here.
It's good to have you as always, mate. We had a lot of fun down there at Pizzey Park last week. The Bears up against the Tigers. Tigers held on eventually in that game.
Yeah, that's it. It was a scrappy old match. Tigers were looking good early. Burleigh came back late, but the good guys, from my perspective, got there in the end, so pretty happy there.
Just held on, mate. They did everything they could to lose that game, these Tigers, but they held on there in the end. Unfortunately for the local side here, the South Logan Magpies, unhappy trip up north, Northern Pride, doing a real number on them, 42-0.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty. But if there's any consolation, I mean, the Northern Pride have done that to a fair few teams this year. So
they sure have.
Best defence in the comp, held them scoreless, and the best attack in the comp, put 42 points on. So they're looking strong, the Northern Pride. They're going to be tough to beat for the premiership this year.
It's looking like it's theirs to lose in a lot of ways. Northern Pride looking very, very good in the Intrust Super Cup. Let's get to some results now. Overnight in the NRL Round 22, the Melbourne Storm, boy, are they back. Melbourne Storm 26-8 over South Sydney at Amy Park. They were not at their best last night, but still coming up with a pretty comfortable win there. They certainly were at their best last weekend when they beat the Raiders 68-4. How about that performance from the Melbourne Storm? Just reminding everybody why they are the defending premiers and why they're going to be very, very hard to beat come the end of the season. Also last night, Parramatta Eels, congratulations to them, 26-22. They beat the Tigers at Parramatta Stadium, ending a 10-game losing streak. So well done there to Parramatta. The return of Jarrett Hayne was key for him, of course, but a lot of pain for the Parramatta supporters over the last few months. It was good thing for them to finally get another win on the board. In the AFL last night, Hawthorn Hawks returned to the winners' circle after your side defeated them last week, Darren. They got up last night, over St Kilda, 102-56. Jared Ruff had 5 goals. What do you think of it, mate?
Yeah, it was never in doubt last week, was it? Oh, do you think I wasn't a happy little boy? I've had a smile on my face all week about that. Look, Hawthorn, who would want to be the team that was going to play Hawthorn this week after losing to Richmond?
No thanks.
Yeah, and we always knew it wasn't going to be pretty. They didn't help themselves. They kicked 7-14, St Kilda, but Hawthorn went out there. They did it without Buddy. And as we just keep saying week after week, they're not a one-man team. They can play right across the board. Roughhead kicked 5, and I think that's a big deal. When Roughhead and some of the smalls are kicking big goals, whatever Buddy does is a bonus. And look, they just got thumped.
They did. Hawthorn Hawks far too good in that one. Also last night, the cricket, the first day of the fourth test underway at Durham, and the Aussies looking good. They got on top by the end of the day. England 9 for 238 after winning the toss. Alistair Cook top scored for the home side with 51. Jonathan Trott also knocking up 49. But the story was Nathan Lyon for the day. 4 for 42. He spun the spinner there, taking a lot of the mid-order wickets. Did a terrific job for the Aussies. And Ryan Harris, 2 for 70, a couple there late in the day. So if the Aussies can pick up that last wicket early in the day for day 2, the Aussies going to be in a very, very strong position for the rest of this test match. Let's look at what else is happening in the world of sport. Darren, I know the golfing world is big news for us Aussies.
Certainly is. Adam Scott at the moment now, since the news, he's just moved into second spot. He was leading the tournament at one stage at 7 under. He's got a first round 65, second round 68. Jason Duffner's ahead of him by 2 strokes at 9 under after a 68 and a second round 63. This is the US PGA Championship, we should mention too. We forgot to mention that. Oak Hill Country Club, one of the famous courses in New York. Marcus Fraser tied for 7th after a first round 67. He's through 17 holes at the moment and is currently 2 under for the round, 5 under for the tournament. Jason Day tied for 17th after a second round 71 to complement his first round 67. Mark Leishman tied for 29th at even. The cut at the moment looks like it will be 3 over par. Now, where does that leave? That leaves people like Bubba Watson out of play. Brett Rumford, the Australian, is out of action there. And Jeff Ogilvie, and there's some other big names like Tom Watson and people like that who are, you never know what he's going to do from year to year. Even though he's a senior player these days, he has a capability of putting together a couple of great rounds and shocking everybody. Tiger is sitting at 1 over par at the moment after a first round 71. He's through 16 holes and he's even with the card. As far as the tennis is concerned, the big Canadian tournaments are on at the moment. This year, the Masters 1000 tournament is to be played in Montreal. Therefore, the girls are in Toronto for the Rogers tournaments. And at the moment, we have 2 quarterfinals have been played. Rainick has won against Gulbis, and Pospisil has defeated Nikolai David. Actually, yeah, they're saying he's defeated him, but they're not putting a score up in there, so that makes things a bit confusing. Djokovic at the moment has just taken the court against Richard Gasquet, and they're in the first game and is currently up 30 love. He is serving on that one. The other match there still to be played is great for us. Matosevic is up against Nadal in the quarter-final there. So we'll see whether he can pull off the craziest upset of the year. I think it would be too, actually. Looking at the girls in China, Shahar Peer and Saisai Zhang are both through to the final of that tournament. And the big Rogers Cup tournament there in Toronto, Radwanska, Agnesa Radwanska, because her sister's doing really well at the moment, Ursula, so we're going to have to start differentiating between the two, has defeated Sarah Irani in straight sets, and Lina has defeated Sabulkova as well there in the first 2 of the quarterfinals to be played there. As far as the other quarterfinals to be played there, Serena Williams will be playing Rybarikova, and we've got Kvitova, who defeated Sam Stosur in the round of 16. Kvitova will be playing Serstia. In practice, it's all road courses this weekend, whether it be sports cars or NASCAR. At Watkins Glen, the NASCAR boys have been going through practice. They've just finished. AJ Allmendinger is currently leading the timesheets there in practice from Martin Truex Jr. A lot of names that we don't normally see during the year there. They're all ring-ins for this one. Marcus Ambrose currently sitting in 6th spot. And I can tell you, Owen Kelly and Marcus Ambrose has had a lot to do with him getting this drive for this race. Owen Kelly sitting in 21st place, so we wait for qualifying on that one. And the other race this weekend will be at Road America, and both the Grandstand Series and the American Le Mans Series are having a joint meeting for that one. So as we get into the motorsport segment, I'll see if we can find whether Ryan Briscoe's racing this weekend in that, and see if there's any other Australians floating around there. That brings you up to date.
Thanks a lot for that, Darren. We will talk motorsport at 9:30. We'll get Lee Hanatscheck on the phone, SportzScene regular, of course, to join us for that discussion. Craig Crowley's away today, but he will be on the phone with us just after 9 o'clock to talk us through the world of Aussie rules football. We'll go to a break now here on SportzScene. We'll be come back. Time to talk through the world of rugby league. Stay with us.
Thomson Cooling is not only a cooling provider, you can also enjoy a cosy, warm and clean environment in your home with cost-efficient reverse cycle air conditioning. Our station sponsor, Thomson Cooling, will recommend the best Daikin reverse cycle air conditioning system for your home. Interest-free packages covering supply and installation are now available. Friendly advice, peace of mind, prompt response, quality product and service. Call today for a no-obligation free quote. Thomson Cooling, 1300 852 869.
Hi, Steve Karen Lawyers. If we can, we'll represent you. No win, no fee, no litigation loans. Can't get in? We can come to you. Call 1300 Lawyer. Put it in your phone or go to karenlawyers.com.au.
Your station sponsor.
I grew up with a lot of drinking at home, and although I'm not a big drinker myself, I saw my family and friends party until it wasn't a party anymore. Then spent years wondering why I felt dazed and confused. Finally, I discovered Al-Anon. If you have experienced a problem drinker in your life, it has probably had an effect on you.
Al-Anon family groups offer understanding and support to families and friends of problem drinkers. Call 1300 Al-Anon. That's 1300 252 666.
There's nothing like the smell of a barbecue. Sausage cooked to perfection with delicious onion or scrumptious bacon with egg on a fresh burger bun. Each month, the team from your station 101 FM cook up a storm at Office Works on Compton Road to raise funds. Drop in and say hi and support your station. Keep listening for details and like us on Facebook. We're your station, Logan City's 101 FM.
We play the biggest hits and the greatest memories.
Logan City's 101 FM.
Now it's back to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. 17 minutes past 8. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, all here with you. Just a reminder, each Tuesday morning during Morning Magazine, Terry Lindsay from our sponsor Technology Training Group answers your questions on all matters regarding computer technology. If you'd like him to give you the right advice, then email your question to techtraingroup@outlook.com or phone Terry on 1300 136 679, 1300 136 679. Each week a lucky person will receive a free lesson valued at $55. It's time now to talk about some Intrust Super Cup here on Sports Scene. Coming into the 21st round of the Intrust Super Cup, a few teams got the bye this week, but only 4 weeks left before this Intrust Super Cup final. So we're going to have a quick look at the sides that are in contention for the finals and which ones we feel will be there at the end of the year. Take a look at the ladder first of all. Northern Pride out on top on 32 points. Mackay Cutters in second on 28. Tweed Seagulls on 25 are in third. East Tigers, this is where we got a bit of a tie here. East Tigers in fourth. Winner Manly fifth. Ipswich Jets in sixth. All those teams on 24 points. Seventh place is the Norths Devils on 18. Redcliffe Dolphins on, 22 points, not 18. Norths Devils 22. Redcliffe Dolphins on 20, along with the South Logan Magpies. And then we got Central Capras, Burleigh Bears, and Sunny Coast Seagulls down the bottom, probably all out of contention. Now, Ethan, out of those sides, which ones do you feel will be there come the end of the season in the Intrust Super Cup?
Yeah, it's a tough one, Kevin. As you mentioned, there's a bit of a logjam there at the bottom end of the five. You'd have to say the two teams at the top, Northern Pride and Mackay, are pretty much set. They'll be there come finals time, and then there'll be a really exciting battle for those remaining sort of three spots. And there's probably 5 or 6 sides in contention really still for those spots there. I mean, Tweed are sitting there in third. They've got a pretty good run home. They've got 3 home games in a row. Yeah. So that's obviously in their favour. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who makes it. I'm thinking Tweed will make it if we're just going to go for straight out predictions. I think East will get there as well. And then I know we agree on this, but I think Wynnum and Ipswich will be battling out for that last spot.
If you had to tip one of those two, Wynnum and Ipswich, which way would you lean?
I'd probably lean slightly towards Wynnum. I think their form's been a bit more consistent than Ipswich, but in saying that, Ipswich have still got a bye up their sleeve as well.
Yep.
Which is a guaranteed 2 points this weekend. So yeah, I'd say Wynnum, but not all that confident.
Ethan?
Yeah, Wynnum have got Central Queensland this week, which is no guarantee. They've been a good side in recent weeks. What were we going to say there, Darren?
Yeah, I was just going, Ethan, how much will emotion play with Wynnum Manly with Graham Murray?
Yeah, it will obviously play some sort of part. Whether it will play on their minds to the point where it becomes a distraction, or whether it distracts them from their footy, or whether it sort of galvanises the team, I guess we'll have to just wait and see with that one. But he obviously has left a massive sort of legacy in rugby league in general, and especially there at Wynnum as well. So it's just a case of wait and see, I think, with Wynnum, and that whether emotion plays a big part or not. What
about the impact of Corey Norman since he's been there? How has he settled into the side, do you think, so far?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, he's been there for 2 weeks now, and they went down both times. I'm pretty sure they lost both matches. So in terms of him having an influence, I'm not sure. It could almost be a bit disruptive having him there in terms of going away from their regular halves pairing. Also, Matt Seamark, the usual halfback's been out injured for a few weeks as well, but I think they'll be getting him back on board relatively soon. So hopefully they can find a bit of consistency there in the halves. But the big thing is with Norman, he won't be eligible for finals footy. So
right.
It's a bit of a sort of catch-22 whether they play him. I guess they have to play him, really, but he won't be there come finals time, so they'll have to change their halves pairing if they do get there. So it's a tough situation there for Wynnum.
Absolutely right, it is. So we just take a look at the recent form of these sides up towards the top. Northern Pride, Mackay Cutters, Tweed Seagulls, and the East Tigers, the top four sides in the competition, have all won at least 4 of their last 5. I say at least because Mackay have won 4 of their last 5, but they also had a draw in there, so they haven't lost in a long time. Mackay, I tend to think those 4 sides, they're the form sides in the competition. They're probably the best sides in the competition at the moment, which makes me think they're definitely going to be there come the end of the season. Then, like you say, it comes down Wynnum up against Ipswich really for that last spot, with Norths just on the outside. All 3 of them only winning 2 of their last 5, faltering a little bit because you look at Wynnum even a few weeks ago were up in second place. So they've fallen off a little bit in recent weeks. They need to find their form again coming into what will be a tough final series, mate. Darren Madigan, look, we've mentioned just briefly going past the ladder a couple of times, but the top 2 teams in the competition are both from the northern end of Queensland. How's the hype been around these 2 sides this season up there? Yeah,
I can't speak too much for the Mackay Cutters, but Northern Pride always get great coverage up here, and obviously last weekend all the right people were scoring tries and with Herzon and that going across. So I mean, it was a big win. It probably wasn't a great spectacle to be putting on, but hey, they were there when other sports aren't doing, as I keep going on ad nauseum. But the Northern Pride get great coverage. There's a lot of the local TV stations that in their news bulletins and that do give them a lot of good coverage, but they're also giving them a lot of atmosphere across the region with it all. I think everyone's waiting. Are we playing at Lang Park again this year? In the grand final?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
I mean, obviously the region is waiting for another trip down to Brisbane to play the grand final. But the other thing that I was going to ask you guys about here is I'm taking a look at East Tigers, and they're 178 in their points difference. They're the second best scoring side in the league. We all know that when you reach the finals, it really does become a case of everyone starts again, unless you've got some really dominant sides in the comp. I mean, if these guys are obviously capable of putting on some big numbers, and they put some numbers on some sides this year, what do you reckon might happen once the finals start with these guys? Because they're obviously capable of putting on some big numbers.
Yeah, I think they've definitely hit form at the right end of the year. I mean, they started off the season quite well. I think they won their first 2, but they slipped away, and they were sort of in the bottom quarter at stages there. They're through the year, but they definitely hit form at the right time of the year. And you mentioned They've put some points on sides, and they put some points on good sides too. Like they put a big total on Wynnum, a big total on Mackay. They got 70 on Norths about a month or 2 ago. So they've got plenty of potency there. But I think the sort of the key for them has been their defence. I think their defence is also the second best statistically in the comp as well. So so they're ticking all the right boxes. If I had to pick two grand finalists at this point, I'd probably say Northern Pride and Easts would be the two teams there at Suncorp.
Yeah, and obviously if Northern Pride, you want to make sure, I'm not sure quite how it works with the Cowboys, but if they can make sure they hold on to all their players and everybody's eligible, it's pretty hard to go past them this year.
How's eligibility for Mahe Whenua? He's been a big part of the East Tigers' attacking prowess over the last couple of months. He's played Melbourne Storm the last 2 weekends and he's been outstanding. But say they get a couple of players back, Melbourne, and Mahe Whenua was to be available for Tigers again, would he then be eligible to play in the finals?
I wish I could give you a conclusive answer. I'm not quite sure, but I'm guessing he'd be right on the fringe because he's played about 11 or 12 NRL games this year, and he's probably played about 8 or 9 for East as well, so he'd be right on the fringe of eligibility there.
How does it work with the eligibility? If you've played more NRL games than the Q Cup games, you're out?
I think so, Kev. We'll run with that. I'm not entirely sure, mate. I'll do my research. I'll come back next week and we'll sort of
change it.
James on that rule. Ethan James quote on that rule. Right. All right, we'll leave that there for now. I think look, the battle to watch for that top 5 is obviously there, that 5, 6, 7 spot. Winner Manly, Ipswich Jets, North Devils. If Redcliffe Dolphins can win all of their remaining games, they're a chance as well, but you'd have to say long odds there. And as we said last week, South Slogan, that last loss to Northern Pride probably puts them out of the race. Yeah. Let's take a look at the competition for this weekend, round 21. It starts up at Virgin Australia Stadium in Mackay. The Mackay Cutters taking on the South Slogan Magpies, mate. That's tonight at 6 p.m. How do you think it'll go? Yeah,
it's another tough road trip for South Slogan. They went, all the way up to Yarrabah last week to take on the Pride. Another big trip up there to Mackay, the team coming second. I can't see them, unfortunately, getting a win there.
Should have just stayed up here.
Yeah, that's it. It's tough for them to back up 2 long trips up against the 2 best teams in the competition. So they're going through a rough patch at the moment, South Slogan. Hopefully they can turn it around, but the tip's got to be Mackay in that one. The TV game this week, Tweedhead Seagulls up against the North Devils. It's a Pigabeen Sports tomorrow afternoon, 2 p.m. But the big news for this one is they're getting a bit of a refurbishment there, courtesy of Paul the Chief Harrigan down at Pigabeen.
Yeah, as far as I understand, Paul Harrigan's built their clubhouse in the past 2 days by himself, or something along those lines anyway.
If you read the press reports, that's what's happening, yes.
No, they put the finishing touches on their new clubhouse down there at Pigabeen. So if anyone's out and about in the area down there, make sure you check it out. It'll be a really good match. I mean, as we've gone through just then, Tweed are coming third, and it's probably a match Norths really need to win if they're to, push their finals claim. So it should be a good match. Leaning towards Tweed there at home. As we were talking about off air just a second ago, they probably don't have the best looking team on paper, but they're such a resilient side. And some of their defensive performances, I know they played East a few weeks ago there, which I saw, and they just hung in there. They're a young side, but they're a really tough side.
Tenacious side,
yeah. That's it, and they'll be tough to beat.
Absolutely. It's also their fundraising day for the Tweed Children's Hospital down there, so anybody in the area, go check it out. It should be a great day at Pigabeen. The East Tigers up against the Sunny Coast Seagulls at Langlands Park tomorrow afternoon, 2 p.m.
Yeah, Easts have a good record at home. I think they've won their past 4 matches at Langlands. I can't see that changing against the Sunny Coast. They'll battle away as they have done all through this year, but you just look at the East team and some of the point scoring options there. Eddie Tatali at fullback. Cody Walker's form has been absolutely superb at 5'8". You just think they got too much in attack. Yeah,
Sunny Coast struggling a fair bit at the moment. It's hard to see them getting a win there. And final match of the round, winner Manly Seagulls up against the Central Queensland Capras at Cougarai Oval tomorrow afternoon, 2 p.m. This one, as we say, far from a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, it's true. Central have, definitely shaking the comp up with a few upsets this year.
Yeah.
It's hard to see them doing it with the travel involved all the way down here to the southeast corner, though. Wynnum, with a fair bit on the lines, on the fringe of the 5, I think they'll turn up with a good attitude and get the win.
That's it. And the buys this week, Northern Pride, Burleigh Bears, Ipswich Jets, Redcliffe Dolphins. That's it. No more buys for the rest of the season in the Queensland Cup. We take one last look at the ladder. Northern Pride on top, Mackay Cutters, Tweedhead Seagulls, East Tigers, Winner Manly Seagulls is the top 5. Ipswich Jets, North Devils, Redcliffe Dolphins, South Slogan Magpies, Central Queensland Capras, Burleigh Bears, Sunshine Coast Seagulls is the competition ladder heading into the 21st round. We'll take a quick break here on SportzScene. When we come back, we'll talk through the world of NRL. Stay with us.
Do you have a street light that's not functioning correctly outside your property? Perhaps you've noticed a floodlight over a zebra crossing that's not operating. Well, Energex would like you to report it to them by calling 13 12 53 or completing an online form for faulty streetlights on their website at energex.com.au. Remember also that the council has to pay the running cost of all the streetlights, whether they're working or not. So let's get the most for our rateable dollar by reporting the streetlights not functioning to Energex on 13 12 53 or on their website energex.com.au.
This is our home, this is our place. Whatever we do for tomorrow. Driving around, don't use the ground. Do the right thing, use the right fin. Keep Queensland beautiful. Keep it up, do the right thing. Keep Queensland beautiful. Keep it up, do the right thing.
Does your business need short-term finance? Now, the people at Property Mortgage Consultants may be able to help you. Why wait 3 months to arrange things with the bank who need financial statements, when monies you need now could be in your bank account within 48 hours of lodging your application? 41 years of finance experience speaks for itself. Call our sponsor, Property Mortgage Consultants, today on 0422 042 152 for a confidential discussion.
Consider yourself.
Beenleigh Theatre Group celebrates the 20th anniversary of their move to the Crete Street Theatre with the first show they ever put on there, Lionel Bart's masterpiece, Oliver. Be first in line for a plateful of fun from June the 21st to July the 6th and buy your tickets now from the box office on 38073922 or online at BeenleighTheatreGroup.com.
Your station sponsor.
101 FM.
You're listening to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Well, welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. 29 minutes to 9. Your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, all here with you. It's time now to talk through the world of NRL. As we said last night, the winners, Melbourne Storm 26-8 over South Sydney, and Parramatta 26-22 over the West Tigers. The Melbourne Storm, we talked a little bit about this last week and how they struggled through the origin period, but as we saw last year, they lost 5 or 6 on the trot. They beat Penrith at one time down at Amy Park 42-0, didn't lose a game for the rest of the season. Last week, Melbourne beat the Raiders 68-4, and just an emphatic turnaround again last night. A comfortable win over a very good South Sydney side, admittedly without Greg Inglis and John Sutton in their side, but Melbourne were not at their best. They turned over a lot of ball, but still found a way to win pretty comfortably. And look, they're looking very good for the back end of the year. They're going to be very hard to beat come semi-finals time, aren't they?
Yeah, that's it. Carbon copy of last year, maybe. Melbourne to go on and win the comp. I don't know, but yeah, it's quite remarkable how they. I don't know. I know we've spoken about it before, but everyone's the Stormers bubble's going to burst at some point. They can't keep up. Their form post Origin, yada yada yada, with all the players involved, but they just find a way to keep doing it, and it's quite remarkable. And you wouldn't find if blokes like Brett Finch and Jason Riles were in any other side. Yes. Like the fact that they're as strong as they are, and you look through their roster. I mean, they have got the big three and some very talented players, but just the way that the rest of their squad sort of comes together, and just the way that they play as a team, it's just testament to the coaching style, just the way that the setup of the whole club.
Yeah, Craig Bellamy has to get credit for that, doesn't he? The way he gets guys that aren't heralded players, like exactly. Guys like Jason Riles and Brian Norrie's another one, guys like that, and just makes them such strong first-grade players because they play within this structure of their game plan that is so specific, and everybody knows exactly what they're doing at every time. It's really great to watch when they're on and those guys are doing their job, and you got the big three producing their magic.
Yeah, that's it. And we've seen some. I mean, that match they played against Canberra, there was some spectacular stuff in there. I mean, Mahe Fanua got a hat trick there on the wing. That tap back that he got in the corner was just remarkable. Yeah, they're obviously going to be right up there again this year, the Storm, and who's going to stop them?
Who knows? South Sydney, without Greg Inglis and John Sutton last night, probably lacked a bit of potency, but they still had plenty that rattled the Melbourne Storm. So I think they get those two guys back, they're still going to be a really big threat, South Sydney. So I wouldn't worry too much if I'm a South supporter about that, but they need those guys back as soon as they can get them back because they're absolute superstars, both of them. Parramatta last night, they got a win finally after a long period of no wins, 10 in a row. it was an ugly record for him, and Ricky Stewart was looking to become only the second coach ever to lose 11 consecutive games on 2 occasions. The only other one to do it was Tommy Radonicus with the Western Magpies. He would have also been the first to do it at 2 separate clubs because he did it at the Cronulla and Parramatta. So there was a sinister part of me that kind of wanted to see that happen just for the records, because I enjoy records. But congratulations to Parramatta. They've been long suffering their supporters for the last few months, and they did it the hard way. It was a seesawing game of footy. They only got to try at the death, really, to seal that game. So congratulations to Parramatta over West Tigers. And there's been a lot of rumblings about Mick Potter, the coach of the West Tigers, about his potential for next season and whether he will or won't be there. Is that talk a little harsh in your mind, Ethan, or is their season been so poor that he deserves to be getting that sort of criticism?
It's been poor, but I don't think you can sack him after 1 year. I mean, everything essentially has gone wrong for the West Tigers. I mean, there was a mass turnover of players at the end of last year. They lost some of their really key forwards, guys like Chris Hynington and Gareth Ellis. They were the cornerstone of that pack, really. Keith Galloway's been out injured all season.
Aaron Woods is out injured now.
They've gone through about $1 trillion backs. Benji's in all sorts of trouble. And then they potentially sack the coach on the back of that. I mean, it's a bit rough. And they've been in a situation where they're still paying out Tim Sheens' contract. And if they were paying out Mick Potter's contract as well, they'd be paying out, and they employed a new coach, they'd be paying 3 coaches, which is just bonkers.
Benji signed with the Auckland Blues, I think, during the week as well.
Yes.
So we now know exactly where he's going. But I'm totally with Ethan on that. I mean, it's there's only so much you can do. We talk about the cattle and what they're doing. Well, if your cattle's going and they're running out the gate, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah. Bottom line is it's been a very tough year for the West Tigers. They will finish in the bottom 2, you would have to say. Them and Parramatta will be 15 and 16 to end this season. Let's move on to the rest of the round now. The Sydney Roosters host the Raiders this afternoon at Allianz Stadium. The Roosters have been in some red-hot form of late, and the Raiders' massive defeat to Melbourne. How do you see this one going, mate?
Just to backtrack a bit, I probably got a bit carried away with who'll stop the Melbourne Storm. I sort of forgot about the Roosters sitting up there at the top of the ladder.
Yes.
But yeah, they're playing some sensational footy. Their halves pairing is going great guns, even though they didn't get the series in Origin, which I'm still gloating about a little bit. But that's all right.
Gloat forever, mate.
Yeah, we'll do. It's hard to see Sydney losing this one. Canberra, always the bounce back factor, but I don't think they'll bounce back high enough to get over the team coming first.
Especially the Roosters at home. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck will play fullback with Anthony Minichiello missing. I'm really looking forward to that personally.
As good a player as Minichiello's been, I reckon they'll be even more dangerous with Roger there at fullback, so see how it goes. I
agree totally. And of course, the Raiders fullback Anthony Milford, even in a beaten side, still had a pretty good game last week. He's an exciting player. And a lot of talk around whether he will. He's asked for a release to be back home to be with his sick father. So we'll wait and see what comes of that. But Anthony Milford, a great player, another Logan product. Look at this next game: the Sharks up against the Knights. That's at Ramonda Stadium tonight for 7:30 p.m. How do you see this one going, mate?
Yeah, touch and go with this one. I'm not really quite sure who to pick here. The Knights had that match where they came back late against Brisbane last week. The golden point with no golden point. No one kicked the field goal. I'm liking Cronulla at home, but I don't know. I can't really split them.
I tend to lean towards Cronulla as well. They're coming off a tough win over in New Zealand. Todd Carney's in terrific form. Paul Gallen's back in the side. So, the Knights have got plenty to play for. I tend to lean a little bit towards Cronulla in that one. Another game we got here is the Manly Seagulls up against the Warriors. That's tomorrow afternoon at Blue Tongue Stadium, 2 p.m. The Warriors, can they bounce back from a loss at home?
Yeah, have to wait and see with the Warriors. Traditionally, they don't travel all that well, and Manly are in pretty slick form at the moment. All guns blazing with them. The halves pairing, Cherry Evans and Foran going well, so I'd have to say Manly there on the Central Coast.
I tend to lean towards a bit of a sneaky upset in this one. Yeah, I think the Warriors, they're still within striking distance of the top 8. They could have moved into the top 8 with a win last week. I just think the Warriors, I think they might bounce back. They've been in very good form of late. I think sneaky upset in that one. I'll tip the Warriors. Brisbane up against the Dragons, Suncorp Stadium tomorrow afternoon. It's the first Sunday afternoon game of the season. That'll be on Channel 9 tomorrow afternoon. How the Broncos going to go up against the Dragons?
Yeah, I actually haven't seen the Broncos play in a fair few weeks, but by all reports, the move of Ben Hunt there into halfbacks, being the right one for the side. I think they're playing a bit of better footy. There's still a sneaky chance of getting into the top 8 if they go on a bit of a winning streak.
They've got to win every game from here to make the top 8.
Yep. I think they'll win this one, and hopefully from there
take it a week at a time.
That's it.
The old cliche.
The old chestnut.
That's the one. But yeah, I agree with you. I think they'll win this game, and we'll see where they go from there. Ben Hunt's been a really good bonus one there, and Justin Hodges has been really essentially playing as a second fullback since he's over the last couple of weeks since Ben Hunt's moved to halfback, and that's made the Broncos, I should say, a very, very dangerous football side. The more ball that Justin Hodges has in his hands, the better the Broncos will be. Next up game we got tomorrow night, I should say, 6:30 p.m. The Penrith Panthers at Centrebet Stadium take on the Cowboys. And Darren Madigan, the Cowboys gave it to South Sydney last night. Where has that been all season?
What a great question. I think with everything that's been going on the last few weeks, maybe they're finally picking up a bit. I mean, with the Cowboys, you'd like to be able to give a great analysis on what's been going on, but, I mean, they've had the roster and they haven't done anything with it all year, and to try to figure out why all of a sudden they start to click in one game, it's just almost impossible.
How often do you see a side suddenly start playing good football once it's announced that the coach won't be there next year?
Yeah,
happens a lot.
It does, and I think that's an indictment on the cattle. It doesn't matter what sport you're playing. I don't think it matters whether it's rugby league, Australian football, whatever. If a team pulls together for a coach that's leaving, why the hell aren't they pulling together every other week?
It's a very legitimate question to be asking, but in this game, Penrith up against North Queensland, the Cowboys pretty short price favourites. Can they make it 2 in a row, Ethan?
I think they can. But we've seen teams as well, like on the back of a coach going, they've put in a really good performance one week and then drop off back to their old ways and then put the week after that. So down there in Sydney as well. But just looking through the teams, I mean, on paper, they should put some serious points on Penrith, to be honest. And
that should happen most weeks with the Cowboys, you don't know. But they should win this game after the way they performed last week. Final match of the round, Monday Night Football, 7 p.m. at ANZ Stadium. The Bulldogs host the Gold Coast Titans, mate. And for the Titans, if they're going to push for a top 8 spot, they need to win this game.
Yeah, they do, and it's a tough road trip for them. And they're still missing a bit of strikeout wide. The Titans, you're looking through their backline, guys like, Jamal Idris is obviously the big one there in the centres. I don't think they'll have enough strike to get over the Dogs, even though they don't have Ben Barber, Sam Perrott, or Josh Morris, whoever's going to be playing fullback for Canterbury. I think they'll have too much strike in attack, and you look at their pack, and it's sort of back to where it was when they won the comp. James Graham and Aidan Tolman, Sam Cassiano all rolling forward. So they're looking strong, the Doggies. And if there's one sort of side outside that top 4, it could be them too.
Are they sneaking under the radar? Desi has got a tendency. Yeah, you're not wrong, mate. Look, they've had a lot of injuries this year. That forward pack that you talk about, it's finally starting to get back together. They're starting to play some good footy. Tony Williams, who copped a lot of criticism first part of the year, he's played some good footy the last couple of weeks too. So the Bulldogs, probably that sleeper team that the top 4 sides will be looking over their shoulder at. They sit 5th at the moment. Let's take a look at that ladder.
Sorry, I was just going to cut in there for a second, Kevin. Just a quick mention on the Titans. Luke O'Dwyer, who's been was a very good friend of this program in the early years of the Tigers. We used to have him on the show a fair bit, and announced his retirement during the week as well.
He did. A foundation Titan as well. He's been there since the beginning. So well done to Luke O'Dwyer. Great career that he has had. We'll take a look at that ladder now. The Roosters up on top. The Rabbitohs in second. The Melbourne Storm sitting in third. And Manly sitting in 4th at the moment. That's the top 4. Probably will be the top 4 at the end of the season, I would say. 3 points back then. You got the Bulldogs in 5th. Then we got the Sharks, the Raiders, and the Knights rounding out the top 8. The Titans in 9th, still looking for a shot at that top 8. Then we've got the Warriors, the Panthers, the Broncos, the Cowboys, the Dragons, West Tigers, and Parramatta rounding out the ladder. We'll take a break here on Sports Scene. We'll come back. We'll talk some cricket, a bit of rugby, a little bit of everything in the next 20 minutes. So stay with us.
Well, man's not a camel. Whose shout is it? Not mine. Yours, I reckon.
Oh, is it? Oh, hang on. A cab's here.
What? You got your own driver?
Well, may as well have. All yellows do it when you use your mobile. SMS on approach. See ya.
I know what SMS on approach means. Skip my shout. SMS on approach. It's the new buzz around town. From Yellow Cabs, of course. Phone 13 Cabs or go to yellowcab.com.au for more information.
Your station sponsor.
Life. Life is for living. So live it. Life. Life is for giving. So give it. Giving blood is cool. Needing it isn't. Red Cross. Give a little. Life is for living. Life is for giving. Help save lives. Please give blood.
Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on that farm he had a chicken, E-I-E-I-O.
The farms where most of our egg products come from aren't what they used to be. Across Australia, 11 million hens are still confined to the misery of battery cages. Please, don't buy into cruelty. Help Animals Australia put an end to factory farming.
Be a voice for animals at animalsaustralia.org.
101 FM.
This is Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, all here with you. 15 minutes to 9, your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. Before we move on to, well, plenty of other talking points in the world of sport that we've got to get to on the show. Darren, the Indigenous All-Star Game, NRL All-Star Game, it's been shelved until 2015.
Yeah, basically what's going to happen with it is they're not going to play it the year straight after the World Cup. Yeah, I ummed and ahed about this a bit, but I sort of understood where they were coming from. I mean, I think someone pointed out it's an 8-week commitment, the World Cup. So, it's if you're going to have your pre-season knocked around that much, and I'm not sure what the situation is with the Rugby League and whether they have a Players Association. I know in the AFL, I think they negotiated at least a 4-week break come the end of the season. Because there was a situation there where teams were just going straight into pre-season and it was getting crazy, getting burnt out with the players. So, yeah, I can understand it. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the fact that they're not playing it 1 year out of 4, but because I think it is a great concept, and I'm still wondering why they couldn't, on that particular year, move it, say later into the year, have a bye weekend or something like that and make it a big event.
Well, what they'll be doing instead, it says, according to the NRL.com website, it will instead be replaced by a week-long festival of Indigenous rugby league programs in Newcastle, topped off by a trial match between the Knights and an Indigenous team made up of players from the New South Wales Koori Rugby League Knockout and Murray Carnivals in Queensland. So there will be a bit of community work there and a bit of outreach there for the Aboriginal communities, which is really what the program and the All-Star Week is really all about.
Yeah, and I know Preston. I think Preston's been seconded to the Mornington Island area to do that one. A few of the other players are closer to their own sort of club areas. So we've seen that going, which is interesting because I mean Preston's Preston's from Tinga out near Inverell, and I know he's the stuff that doesn't get reported on. He's down through the years has done a lot of work out there, along with I think Nathan Blacklock and people like that. So. Yeah, interesting to see he's going to go straight to the top of the country. And look, I'm not being negative about it. I mean, I think, I really like the concept. I think it's been a great thing. And I worry when things get postponed or a year's break happens, because often they lose their momentum and people tend not to come back to them. And I'm sure that won't happen with this. It's just that, there's always that worry.
Right. I know exactly where you're coming from with that, mate. I don't want to see it lost either, so it will be welcomed back with open arms, I'm sure, in 2015. Let's move on now, because if we stay on rugby league, we won't get time to talk about everything else that's happening in the world, and there is plenty. We'll start with a bit of tennis, actually, with this one. Ethan, the Brisbane International picked up another award this week.
Yeah, they were given the ATP award for the second year, which of course is the Global Tennis Organisation, for best fan experience at a tournament, which is... sensational work considering the number of ATP tournaments that go on globally throughout the whole year. For our little tournament here in Brisbane to pick that up for a second year in a row, it's fantastic, and it's testament to the way that the tournaments run and the players that we have here, and just the event in general. I mean, I've been involved with it the past 2 years, and just keeps growing, getting bigger and bigger. The crowds are sensational. The tennis is great. So, yeah, well done to the Brisbane International.
Absolutely. And Darren Madigan, they got a chance to go for 3 in a row next year with the boost of a very, very big name on the roster.
Mr. Federer, the greatest of them all. Not going to play in Dubai by the looks of it, which has been his traditional lead up to January. and looks like he's going to come back and stay in Australia. But it looks like things now, he'll probably prove a complete liar of me and take off out of the country for a week after the Brisbane game. But you go from Brisbane, then there's the Sydney International. There's that whole Australian. We've been trying to do what they do like in America with the US Open Series. So you have that Australian Open Series, which is played on the same surface all the way through, because all the tournaments now have taken on this surface that the Australian Open plays on. So it's a fantastic get. I think we had Nadal. Did we have Nadal last year, Ethan?
We've had Murray the past 2 years.
Yep.
He's been the biggest name on the men's side. Yeah. So, but to get Federer, it's huge.
It's massive. It's absolutely massive. And look, you won't be able. I mean, the tickets for that will just be ridiculous. I mean, I shudder to think what they're going to cost. But the scalpels will be having a great old time out at Tennyson, won't they?
It's the type of thing that might even get me to get in my car and come up and check it out, because it's fantastic stuff there. Go check out Roger Federer at the Brisbane International, the most fan-friendly tournament in the world.
What more could you want? Federer, Kev will be there as well.
Exactly.
And Brisbane International.
We'll have a good old time there. Let's move on now. Take a look at the local scene. It's the final round in the SBL for the basketball for our Logan sides. In the women's side of the draw, first of all, the Logan Thunder taking on the Noosa Cyclones. That's at Cornubia Park Sports this afternoon, 3 p.m. The Logan side, I should say, currently sitting in 10th. It's the last round of the competition. They're out of contention for the top 4. So this will be their last game of the season, taking on Noosa, who sit down in 12th. So a winnable game for them there. Hopefully they can finish the season on a high. On the men's side of the draw, the Logan Thunder also taking on Noosa at Cornubia Park Sports this afternoon, 3 p.m. Also, West Logan, they'll be taking on the Caboolture Suns at Centenary Lake Sporting Complex, 5 p.m. tonight. We take a look at the ladder in the men's side of the draw. West Logan sit in 10th, and the Logan Thunder also sit down there in 12th. So the two Logan sides out of contention for the top 4 on both sides of the draw, on the men's and the women's, but hopefully they can bring it home with a win to finish up the season. Darren, what's happening in the NPL?
Yeah, we've got the Western Pride up against the Moreton Bay Jets this evening at the North Ipswich Reserve at 6 p.m. The Queensland Academy of Sport play Central Queensland at Rugby Park at 1 p.m. That's tomorrow, that match. Palm Beach Sharks will be playing the Far North Queensland Heat tomorrow afternoon at Malawa Complex at 2 p.m. And we've got the Sunshine Coast Fire up against the Brisbane Strikers tomorrow afternoon at Sunshine Coast Stadium, 2 p.m. Northern Fury, the Townsville-based team, play Brisbane City tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. at the Townsville Sports Reserve, and Olympic FC up against Redlands United at Goodwin Park at 5 p.m. tomorrow evening. The ladder, Olympic, well ahead of everybody, and that starts with Brisbane City. Sunshine Coast Fire, Brisbane Strikers, Redlands United, Northern Fury make up 6, and the rest of the comp is Moreton Bay Jets, Western Pride, Palm Beach Sharks, Far North Queensland, Central Queensland, and the Queensland Academy of Sport.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for that, Darren. Let's move on to Rugby Union now here on Sports Scene. 8 minutes to 9, your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James with you. The Rugby Championship gets underway in just 8 days. The Bledisloe Cup, Australia up against New Zealand. Australia has not won the Bledisloe Cup since 2002. We've lost 10 in a row. The Queensland State of Origin side, they've won 8 in a row. 10 in a row is just brutal here for the Aussies. So desperation times here to try and get the Bledisloe back. The 30-man squad for the championship has been named by the new coach, Mr. Ewan McKenzie. A bit of a new look squad there. There's eight uncapped players in the side. A bit of a change around. James O'Connor has been named as a wing/full, playing at 10. The big talking point is who will be taking that 10 jersey. There's 3 guys in the squad in contention for that spot. Quade Cooper from the Reds, of course, Bernard Foley from the Waratahs, and then Matt Tamua from the Brumbies. Look, a lot of public opinion on this one. It's split pretty evenly, I think, between Quade Cooper and Matt Tamua as the 2 front runners, with Foley more the wild card. Who would we like to see run out in the Australian number 10 jersey for the Qantas Wallabies in 8 days' time? 7 days' time, I should say.
I think I'd like to see Cooper out there. Give him a go finally. Get him. I mean, he's capable. I mean, look, we know he's with the really, really big games there. He has been on and off down through the years, but I'm prepared to give him another go.
he's produced at the Reds under Ewan McKenzie's game plan and with Will Genia at 9 as well. So there's a big boost for him there. I think that's the way that McKenzie will go. I think Craig Cooper will be the 10, but I'd really love to see Matt Tamua there as well, because Matt Tamua is a guy, he's been terrific for the Brumbies the last couple of years. His defence is outstanding, which is the big sticking point with Quade Cooper in the defence. He's a little bit more of a safe type of player than Quade Cooper. So it comes down to the game plan, I guess, that Ewan McKenzie wants to employ with the Aussies, whether he wants to chance his arm a little bit and go for the attacking player or a little bit less of it. And that's not to say that Matt Tamua is not a great attacking player, because he certainly is, and he's proven that at the Brumbies the last couple of years. But you'd have to think the best attacking spark is going to come from Will Genia at 9, Quade Cooper at 10. So wait and see how it goes with that one.
Yeah, that's it. Is there the potential to run with both? I mean, obviously, maybe Cooper starting and Tamura on the bench and see how Cooper goes interchange halfway through.
Absolutely,
like
there's a chance of that. There's lots of options there for Ewan McKenzie, so there's every chance we could see that. Also then comes into the question of who's going to play fullback for the Wallabies this year. Jesse Morgan's been included in the squad. He's one of the uncapped players. He's been debuted against the Lions, but he's been terrific the last couple of years for the Brumbies and just been outstanding. I think he's a real chance. But also the Super Rugby Australian Rookie of the Year, Israel Folau. I think there's a very good chance we could see him run out at fullback and see James O'Connor on the wing for Australia in that one. It'd be exciting to see him on the wing. Just on that Super Rugby, the awards for this year, the Australian Super Rugby Player of the Year, Michael Hooper from the Waratahs, of course, the open side flanker. He's been terrific since moving over there from the Brumbies. He's been really, really good. He's been great for Australia. Covered for David Pocock and done an outstanding job, Michael Hooper, so well deserved. Israel Folau, as I mentioned, picked up Rookie of the Year. It's strange to think of him as a rookie since he's been around for forever and he's played for Australia and he's a dual international, he's played AFL, yet he picks up Rookie of the Year, deservedly so. He's been fantastic. And Coach of the Year, Jake White from the Brumbies, and Team of the Year, the Brumbies, of course, who went all the way to the grand final. Were very unlucky in that grand final. They led 22-12 with about 15 minutes to go, but the Chiefs came home strong and ended up winning that one 27-22. So a bit of a heartbreaker there for the Brumbies, but a little bit of consolation. They pick up the Australian Team of the Year. Darren, we're looking forward to the Rugby Championships, of course, including Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, and Argentina. Can the Aussies bounce back from losing the Alliance Series and finally take out a Bledisloe Cup?
Look, I think it's possible. I mean, look, we know that the All Blacks have just been so awesome over the last couple of years, but there was a lot of good things to take out of the Lions series. And I think there was, maybe a few tweaks here and there, and I think anything is possible next Saturday night. I really do. I mean, if there's ever been a team that's due for a loss, it's probably the All Blacks, if you want to go down the old cliche. But really, what you can take out of what we did against the Lions, and we're bringing people like Cooper and that back in who were out of favour, would be a great idea. I'm not so sure about. I mean, we discussed at the start of the year about Folau at fullback simply because of his skill set and everything he brings in. I was still with that, but after watching him on the wing, I'm just wondering whether we keep it simple with Folau and just get the ball out wide to him and let him weave his magic.
Every chance that could happen, and we could have a guy like Jesse Mogg at fullback doing plenty of magic of his own. So, but I tend to think the more ball that Israel Folau gets, the better Australia will be. And I lean towards playing him at fullback, but we'll wait and see how it goes. Whether it's a matter of, you want to put him there and leave a guy like Jesse Mogg on the bench or wherever, or keep them all in the starting 15 and start with Jesse Mogg and play Israel Folau on the wing with James O'Connor on the other wing or whatever. So wait and see. I'm excited about where this team's going under the new direction of Ewan McKenzie. I think we're going to see a lot more attacking rugby first and foremost, and I think it's indicated with the type of players that he's selected in this team. And also just point out, 11 Brumbies in that squad, 9 Reds, 6 Waratahs, 3 Western Force players and 1 Melbourne Rebel. Very different to a lot of the makeup of Robbie Dean's squads that would tended to favour a lot more Waratahs, regardless of their position on the ladder. But this side, I think, reflects the form of the Super Rugby sides in Australia. ACT Brumbies certainly deserve to get the vast majority of players in this team. They've been terrific. Don't have a lot of time now heading into the news, about 90 seconds, so we'll start on a little bit of cricket and then we'll get Craig Crowley on the phone to join us in on the conversation. But, of course, last night the Aussies, a very good first day for them. England finished up at 9 for 238 after winning the toss. Nathan Lyon 4 for 42. A guy he was dropped before the first test. Ashton Agar came in for the first 2. Probably didn't perform the way we would have liked him to in Game 3, but he really stood up in the first innings yesterday, didn't he?
Yeah, that's it. And I'm an unashamed fan of Nathan Lyon. I mean, he gets he gets shafted in and out of the side, really. I mean, he's dropped for, left arm spinners who can spin the ball away that never end up really taking any wickets. Guys like Xavier Doherty, unfortunately, Agara as well. But Nathan Lyon just keeps plugging away, and to take 4 wickets on a first day pitch against England in England is a great effort for an off spinner.
And he took a lot of the big wickets too. Took down Trott, Peterson, Bell, Barstow. Took
through the middle.
Took the whole middle. He essentially gutted the entire middle order. Darren.
Yeah, well, we'll talk more about this after the news because I know we've only got about 30 seconds to go. But Cook never looked comfortable. He was on about I think it was like 149 balls by the time he got to 50 or something. So.
From 164 balls.
Yeah, it was great for us, and Chester Latreat just looked an absolute treat. But once again, we'll talk about that after the news.
We certainly will. We'll go to the news now here on SportzScene. Stay with us. We get Craig Crowley to join us on the line after the break to talk through some cricket, the world of Aussie rules football, plenty more to come, motorsport, netball, plenty to talk about here on SportzScene. So stay with us. Here on 101 FM, 5 minutes past 9. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, all here with you, taking you through the second hour of SportzScene. And joining us on the line, SportzScene regular and AFL Queensland Hall of Famer, Mr. Craig Crowley. Welcome back to the show, mate.
G'day, mate. How are you?
Very good, thanks, mate. It's good to have you with us. Before we move into the world of Australian rules football, a little bit more cricket to discuss. We had a very brief discussion about it before the news there, just on the Aussies. And the first day, of course, England 9 for 238. It was a good day for the Aussies. And, mate, I'll ask you first up, Craig, thoughts on Nathan Lyon taking 4 wickets for 42 yesterday?
Well, mate, it's great that obviously our spinners have come to the fore after sort of the English spinners have been doing. One especially has been doing so well. So yeah, it's good to see that Nathan Lyons is actually getting some purchase on the track and getting some wickets. But another thing I look at is there a change in the guard because of Lehman, or what do you think? Is it a case of they just are starting to play better? It just seems to be very coincidental.
In the last couple of tests, you mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely. The momentum has certainly swung in this test series. Australia were dominant, really, in that third test, and a very good first day here in this one. Darren Madigan, what would you put down the turnaround in form to in the last couple of tests?
Oh, I think, bringing Darren Lehman in obviously has a lot to do with it. He's very good with people. He's a good man manager, as we like to term it, and I think, too, not being afraid to move that batting order around a bit as well. Has, I think, making some tough decisions. He's doing all the right things at the moment. So Michael Clark, when he did the toss yesterday, he was not prepared to let on what the batting order will be. So he's either being coy or he really is waiting to see what this Chester Latreat pitch actually does.
And that's what it comes down to now for the Aussies, isn't it? The bowlers have done their job. They've got almost completely finished their job. They had 9 for 238. That's a very good first day effort from the bowlers. Now the batsmen have got to put in, and they've got to go out there and score some runs on the second day.
Yeah, that's it. We've seen sort of similar scenarios in the past with the Australian cricket team in recent times. I mean, the bowlers will, restrict the opposition to a relatively low score, and then the batsman will get bowled out for something less. So it's up to the batsman now to put some runs on the board and back up the good work that the bowlers have done.
Absolutely. Craig, we saw Dave Warner open the batting in the second innings of the last test. Was that a one-off, just looking for quick runs, or do you think that is something that we'll see again here in this test match?
Oh, look, I think it was a one-off situation. I think, the way Watson, and we spoke about it, even though he didn't look as fluent as he normally does, I still reckon his spot is at the top of the order because if they can just, as we spoke about previously, if they can consolidate that top of the order and give their lower order some, so a bit of rest, take the shine off the ball, tire the batsmen out, the bowlers out, they're all good. But probably the biggest thing also we've got to look at too is, for so long we've been playing one part of the game. Our bowlers have always been doing a reasonable job. We've just got to get two parts of the game together, bowling and batting. And now, first of all, they've got to finish this off. They've still got to get that last wicket, and then they've got to consolidate after that. I think they've got to start taking baby steps at looking at one job at a time. Let's go out and bowl. Now let's go out and bat.
That's it. And finally, mate, before we move away from the world of cricket, Craig, I'll ask you about this one. We've been avoiding it so far in the conversation, but the elephant in the room, the series is gone. England has retained the Ashes as a result of that rain out in the third test. Was that a little bit of a hollow win in that one there for the English, or is it still something that they can really celebrate, that the fact that they have retained this series?
Oh, look, I reckon they'll be going flat out to win. You know, they don't want to win it by a draw. They want to win it comprehensively by themselves. They're still got to remember all cricketers who play the game are playing there for contracts and careers. So if they go out there and think, oh, we've already won it, let's just make it look good for the Australians, or take our foot off the pedal, you'll find out that they'll make changes and end up without a career. So they'll be looking to make it, a clean sweep. And I think every side would be trying to win as many games as they possibly can. So, even though, it probably is a bit of a hollow victory, I think if they win another test, that's when they will actually take it upon themselves to, take the victory then.
Sure. Heading back to Australia, of course, at the for our summertime, the English come down here. Darren, has the performance of the last test and a half, I suppose, filled you with a little bit more confidence in how the Aussies are going to go when they come back to Australia?
Look, a little bit, but I think we're still a little bit out of balance. We're lacking, obviously, we're lacking an opener. At least one that's performing, and we're lacking someone who can turn the ball away from the bat consistently and do it at a world-class level. And I think that's important. The new guy from Pakistan might very well be that person. Who knows? He performs against top class or higher class players in first class cricket very well. He's been doing the job over on the tour overseas at the moment. So we'll get to see what happens there. But I think the balance at the moment is still out. And I'd like to see, as I say, a decent wrist spinner. And to add to all of that, I think there are certain people already in the side that probably should be bowling as well. People like Clark, who was a left arm wristy who could cause all sorts of havoc on the right day.
Just on the whole spinner sort of issue, I'm still a little bit perplexed by the obsession with finding a spinner that can turn the ball away from the bat. Like, I obviously understand the benefit, in terms of spinning away from the bat, in terms of finding edges, but if there's not a quality spinner that can do that, I mean, why not just stick with Nathan Lyon? His test record's quite okay. It's quite good. And when you compare it to other off spinners around the world, like, he's no Graham Swan, who's obviously the predominant spinner in world cricket at the moment, but you compare it to spinners, from other nations, and what he brings to this Aussie team. And he's taken 4 wickets in this first innings. I don't know. I feel we're too sort of ready or too willing to, tinker with the spinner, when I think Nathan Lyon should just be almost an automatic selection in the side.
All great sides have two things about them. One, they have consistent throughout the side, and they also have weapons. A good wrist spinner who can turn the ball away from a bat is just as much of a weapon as a great fast bowler. And we've seen that down through the years. And I mean, I'm not going to use the Warne example, because we've had other really good or even just above average wrist spinners who, when they get out there, they do the job. I mean, people like Sleep, Dutchy Holland going back 20, 25 years, and the guys that went after him just before Warney came along. And, these players, if they're turning the ball away from the bat, they become a weapon, and all of a sudden the slips cordon comes into play, and that area around cover and long off. And, you're going to take wickets that way. And let's face it, test matches are all about taking 20 wickets.
Yeah, look, we'll leave it there for that one. Time will tell. If Nathan Lyon can keep taking wickets the way he was on the first day, he'll keep his spot at the side. That's the way it'll go. And, if he doesn't, he won't be there. So we'll see what happens when the time comes for the Australian summer. Let's move on to the Australian rules of football now. The NEFL we will start with. Darren Madigan, I'll go to you for the news, and then we'll go to Craig Crowley for a comment on this one. A little bit of news breaking during the week with the upcoming restructure of the competition. Mate, would you mind filling us in?
Yeah, well, they obviously had a meeting earlier on, and then they had a meeting yesterday. I haven't heard anything out of that yet. Craig might be able to bring us up to date on that. But we were supposed to have some sort of press release yesterday afternoon, and finally an announcement of what had happened. The rumours that I've heard have basically been a 10 to 12 team comp with absolute guaranteed teams out of the Northern Territory and North Queensland. The North Queensland side looks like it'll probably be out of Townsville rather than Cairns, which I thought was rather odd. But there's also big talk that the majority of the team will probably be Papua New Guinean players as well. So they're looking at that side of things. I know the guy who's involved in coaching the Papua New Guinean side and Oceania and all that sort of stuff. I used to play against him up in Townsville, and he's a good operator. So we might actually try and see if we can have a chat with him down the track, and once we know what's happening with the comp. But my understanding at the moment is there have been talks, but it's given we have no press release about it yet, and especially on a Friday afternoon, I would guess that the discussions hadn't come to a conclusion, probably a couple of clubs holding out or whatever. Craig, do you have anything further on that?
Well, look, not a real lot. Basically, the speculation is that it will be like a super northern competition with, as you said, the NT and Northern Queensland side being involved. But there's still a lot of grey areas that have got to be put over. As far as I know, every club had to submit a application with a 5-point agenda, and they had to meet that criteria. They never met the criteria. They weren't offered a licence, put it that way. So I think a lot of them still, and the NEFL headquarters, I suppose, one of the better words, they have to make sure they dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure the financial situation is strong enough to make them viable in the next competition, because I think they'll find that they are trying to up the ante to create more of a talent pool for the AFL. So it's not something that they're looking at lightly. So the more time they put into it, the better it's going to be. So it's something they can't rush. It's something they have to get 100% right, because don't get 100% right, we end up falling on our face.
Craig, we should also point out too that during the week, Morningside announced that they won't be entering a team in that NEFL. So that's actually, from a history point of view, that's actually a big deal as far as Queensland is concerned. My understanding is obviously Southport, Redlands, and Aspley, and I guess that coincides with the financial position of their leagues clubs and how well off the clubs are. I mean, I think people forget Redlands down through the years have always had a very successful leagues club there, even if the team hasn't been doing well. So my understanding is that some teams are the ACT seem to think that they're going to get all 4 of theirs in. I don't think that's going to happen. And a couple of probably 2 teams out of Sydney, plus then you've got your reserve grade teams from the AFL sides that are in there.
Yeah, well, and what we're alluding to is that, and we've got to not lose sight of the fact that this competition will step up. The competition underlying, which Morningside has said they can't come to the majors, so they'll go into the underpinning one, that'll still be a very, very strong competition. It'll be the equivalent of NEFL, if not NEFL, at least the old AFLQ. So it won't be a huge step down to Pineapple Cup situation. I think what they're trying to do is not only generate a probably, like I said, a super comp down the eastern seaboard, but also the bringing up the next tier of teams. Probably, the teams in the Pineapple Cup now have to step up. So it's not a case of Morningside going down, it's the other side stepping up. And I think it'll be very important, obviously, if there's only the strong survive financially, you'll probably see maybe the Broadbeach and Labrador type teams, but they'll still be strong outfits. So it'll all go well for football in Queensland.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I think, Craig. I reckon we're looking at Sydney Swans, Brisbane Lions, Greater Western Sydney, North Queensland, the Northern Territory, Belconnen, Ainslie, and probably we're looking at out of Sydney. It's hard to say out of Sydney. I mean, possibly an Eastlake or a Hills Eagles in there as well. I mean, that brings you up to close to 10 teams. So, I mean, that's what I'm predicting anyway.
Aaron?
What was that, Craig?
I think it'll still come down to the financial status and their viability, also their growth rate areas and all that sort of stuff. So it's not just going to be a case of, they're doing well. It's a case more so they've got to be financially viable, and also they've got to have a balance in their junior development and the area development.
That's it. Look, we'll leave it there for the moment. We've got to move on for some tips for the rest of the round. But, Craig, I know we'll get Craig Miller on the show in the next couple of weeks when it's a little bit clearer, and he'll fill us all in exactly what is happening with the NEFL for next year. All right, we'll jump to tips now for round 21, mate. Redlands up against Broadbeach this afternoon at Redlands, 1:30 p.m. What do you think, Craig?
Well, Redlands have jumped out of the box the last couple of weeks. They're really flying at the moment. So I think the season probably is not coming quick enough for Broadbeach. It'd be a great win if they could get a win up there, but just Redlands have just got it all together just recently. They've got us next week in the last game of the round. They'll need to win both games to make the final. So, look, I think Redlands will be very, very good today, and I think they'll win pretty comfortably.
That's it. And just while we're on Broadbeach, mate, there was a bit of sad news that you wanted to mention from Broadbeach.
Yeah, it wasn't the Broadbeach Football Club. It's actually the Labrador Football Club. It's one of the reserve grade players, a guy called Joe Sutton, unfortunately passed away after illness last week. They had his funeral yesterday. So probably from all of us at 101, we'd like to pass on our condolences to the family, the friends, and also the Labrador Football Club. Yeah, it's a pretty sad situation when anyone passes away at a young age. But yeah, our thoughts and prayers go out to those guys.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about Labrador's game this afternoon, mate. They come up against the Gold Coast Suns at Metricon Stadium, 3:55 p.m. this afternoon.
Yeah, well, Labrador, unfortunately, they've got a few players out, significant players out on work commitments and unavailability. It's just they've appointed a coach for next year, which is a great start. They're looking forward, but at the moment, yeah, they're really hamstrung with their clientele at the moment, and I think the Suns, their professional unit, will be just too strong.
That's it. The big game this afternoon, Southport Sharks up against the NT Thunder. Southport at home for this one, 1:30 p.m. this afternoon, mate. How's this one going to go down?
Once again, the Thunder, they need to keep winning to stay in the race for the final. So, and look, when they travel, you don't really know what they're going to bring to the table. They've got a few injuries, a few blokes unavailable. So that doesn't mean they're going to be not as strong. You always consider a team like Northern Territory to be very competitive at any given time, and if you don't show them respect, they can run all over. They're very quick. They know how to move the ball. They beat us down here at Broadbeach last year in the preliminary final, which kept us out of playing in a grand final last year. So we'll make sure the players know well and truly about that. So I think, even though it'll be a very close game, I think we should be able to get over the line.
That's it. It's a very important game for NT Thunder, mate. Only one more round after this before the finals, and they need to win in order to keep the pressure on the Gold Coast Suns, who sit in fifth.
Well, that's right. They do. And look, and more so what Darren touched on last week, it's really important for their growth and their development that they do win, you know, and even though we'll be trying our utmost to stop that, for them to be going forward and to have their long-term goal, I think it's really important that they get this win. So that's why we're really expecting a competitive game.
That's it. Final match of the round, mate. Mount Gravatt up against the Brisbane Lions. It's at Yeronga, 1:30 p.m. this afternoon.
Yeah, this could look. Make no bones about it. Last week, they were extremely good. Mount Gravatt against Morningside in their derby down there. But top versus bottom, I think it'll go the way it should go. And the Lions will probably know, getting a bit closer to the finals, what their objective is, if they're going to, go all the way with their players or not. But look, Mount Gravatt, they've had a very, very tough year, and I can't see it getting any easier for them.
And the buys for this round, Aspley and Morningside both get the buy this week. We'll take a look at the ladder. Heading into the second last round of the competition, the Brisbane Lions on top, Southport Sharks in second, Aspley, Morningside, Gold Coast Suns is the top five, NT Thunder right there, as well as Redlands, who was shot right up there into finals contention. The Broadbeach, Labrador, Mount Gravatt round out the ladder. We'll leave it there. We're going to go to a break here on Sports Scene. Craig Crowley, thanks very much for joining us on the phone this morning.
Once again, a pleasure, guys.
Always a pleasure to have you, mate. You'll be back with us next week.
Yep, no worries at all.
All good, mate. We'll talk to you then. We'll take a break here on Sports Scene. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sports Scene here on a 101 FM. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, all here with you. Time now to talk a little bit of AFL. Round 20 of the AFL got underway last night, of course. Hawthorn getting up 14-18, 102 over St Kilda, 7-14, 56. As we talked about at the top of the show, Darren, Hawthorn once again proving what a very, very good side they are. Jared Roughhead picking up 5 goals.
Indeed, and as I keep saying, they're not a one-team, a one-player team. I should mention too that when I did my little predictions before, I forgot the 3 South East Queensland team. No wonder Craig thought, well, he didn't say my team. What's going on? And that took us up. That would have taken us up to 12 teams. But anyway, as far as Hawthorn are concerned, wow. I mean, Craig put the question to me last week when we were talking about Richmond. They hadn't beaten any of the teams above them. And all of a sudden, now they have, and they've done it in the most emphatic way by beating Hawthorn. But is it just an aberration? or are Hawthorn still as strong as ever been? I'm actually heading towards the latter on that one. I think Hawthorn were just amazingly strong. I still think they're the raging red-hot premiership favourites. As long as all their stars manage to make it back in for September injury-free. Buddy out with a hamstring injury, along with all the talk going on about GWS, was a bit of a worry. But, hey, they did it without him, and they've been doing it without him for quite some time now. So, a fantastic performance from Hawthorn. I mean, nobody questioned they were going to win the match. The thing was whether the other guys would step up, and they did.
It was an absolutely great win for Richmond last week, but at the same time, you look at Hawthorn, like they can't win every single game every single week. So a loss here and there, it probably does them a world of good. There's an argument for that side, isn't there?
Look, there always is that argument, although any good coach will shoot you down in flames every time you try to bring that argument up at a press conference or something like that, as you've probably experienced. I know I have. Look, any side that's that good would like to think they can go through a season undefeated. They've lost 3 matches so far. They're 16-3 for the season. They're sitting comfortably at the top of the ladder. The most important thing for them is they're comfortably in the 4, which means it gives them a little bit of an easier run come September. And I just can't, apart from the Sydney Swans, I can't see anyone knocking them off this year. I think Geelong, as Craig pointed out last week, have lost their fear factor from the other teams.
Fair enough. Let's move through the rest of the round now before we run out of time for the AFL segment here. The Richmond Tigers, of course, coming off that good win over Hawthorn last week. They take on the Brisbane Lions at the MCG this afternoon, 1:45.
Indeed, and look, I think Richmond, as I keep saying ad nauseum week after week, they're playing with belief, and now they've helped to add to that belief now. I think they're going to win. I won't say they'll win comfortably because Brisbane Lions this year have been doing some crazy things and scaring teams, but I think we'll still win.
Geelong Cats taking on Port Adelaide at Simmons Stadium this afternoon, 2:10 p.m, mate.
3rd versus 8th, but don't you believe it? Port Adelaide have been a revelation this year. We all had them as wooden spooners, and next thing you know, they're in the 8. They're 44 points. That's 11 wins versus 9 wins for Carlton, sitting in 9th spot. So things are looking very good for Port. I think one more good win for Port, and they've pretty much consolidated their position in 8th spot, and certainly in the 8th. So I still think they will probably lose this particular match, but as I said, they only need one more win, and I think they consolidate their place in the 8.
That's it. Carlton taking on the Western Bulldogs this afternoon, 4:40 p.m. at Etihad Stadium.
Carlton Doggies. Look, Carlton have been coming on stronger and stronger as the seasons go on. I think they've left their run a bit late, but they'll still beat the Doggies.
Sydney Swans at home up against Collingwood at ANZ Stadium tonight, 7:40 p.m. Big game. Yeah,
controversial match too. I think this match was actually taken away from. They were actually promised the match if the AFL decided to play there, but I think the NRL had hoped to actually play some games there in this one. But Sydney v Collingwood. Sydney nobody has a home ground advantage on this one. This ground is just as foreign to Sydney as it is to Collingwood, but I think Sydney will still win.
Gold Coast Footy Club, they take on Melbourne tonight at Metricon Stadium, 7:40 p.m. This is a game you would expect the Suns to win.
Yeah, it's actually taken on a bit of interest too around the place. Normally, this sort of a match would be, very ho-hum, but I think people are just wondering what's going to happen here, whether Melbourne can actually get up and get a win against them. But Gold Coast Suns, I think, will be playing just as much for a win as they will be for Gary Ablett's 250th match, and a commitment from him during the week, maybe not in writing, but certainly verbally, that the Suns is where he wants to be. So I think the Suns are looking pretty good on this one.
Absolutely. Essendon take on the West Coast Eagles tomorrow afternoon, 1:10 p.m. Etihad Stadium.
I reckon this will be a beauty. Essendon and West Coast. West Coast have disappointed me all season. I actually had them as my premiership favourite. But Essendon, last week or two, with what's been going on around the place, they've probably started to use that as a bit of an excuse. I'm going to tip an upset, West Coast Eagles.
And just on that top 8 predictions, mate, I do still have that saved away on my computer, and they will come out once the finals are settled, so we can all see how silly we are from our predictions at the start of the year. Adelaide Crows up against the North Melbourne Kangaroos, Amy Stadium. It'll be 2:50 p.m. Central Time tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, North have got big smiles on their faces this week after their performance last week. I think they can go back-to-back this week. North Melbourne to beat Adelaide.
And final match of the round, the Freo Dockers take on the GWS Giants, 2:40 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, Patterson Stadium. That's Western time, so 4:40 Queensland time. The Giants, they finally got on the board last week.
They did, and they've caused some scares during the year against some good sides as well, but oh my goodness, Freo at Subiaco Oval playing the way they are at the moment. Pavlich is back in the side this week. I can't stress enough what a difference he makes to that team, and yeah, it's not going to be pretty.
Take a look at the ladder now in the AFL heading into that 20th round. Hawthorn out on top, followed up by the Sydney Swans, Geelong Cats. Fremantle is the top 4, then Essendon, Collingwood, Richmond. Port Adelaide is the top 8. As you say, really Port Adelaide one more win and they've consolidated that spot in the 8. We've got Carlton, North Melbourne, West Coast, Brisbane Lions, Adelaide Crows, Gold Coast Suns, Western Bulldogs, St Kilda, Melbourne, GWS Giants rounds out the competition ladder. We'll take a break now here on SportzScene. When we come back from the break, we get Lee Hanatscheck from the Australian Karting Association on the phone. We're going to chat some motorsports. Stay with us on 101 FM. Back to SportzScene here on 101 FM, 25 minutes to 10, your next fresh news update. Coming up at the top of the hour, just a reminder, each Tuesday morning during Morning Magazine, Terry Lindsay from our sponsor, Technology Training Group, answers your questions on all matters regarding computer technology. If you'd like him to give you the right advice, then email your question to techtraingroup@outlook.com or phone Terry on 1300 136 679, 1300 136 679. Each week, a lucky person will receive a free lesson valued at $55. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, all here with you. It's time to talk a little bit of motorsport, and joining us on the line to talk us through the world of motorsport from the Australian Karting Association, Mr. Lee Hanatscheck. Welcome back to the show, mate.
Great to be with you once again, Kev.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, mate. We'll start with some NASCAR, mate. Watkins Glen this weekend. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, Watkins Glen, Marcus Ambrose is aiming for another victory this weekend, road course, third straight nationwide, I think, from memory, if he can match that up. Also looking at the NASCAR win as well, the Sprint Cup. He's joined in the Sprint Cup by Owen Kelly this year. Owen's making his debut in the Sprint Cup after a good performance in the nationwide a few weeks back, but now he's got his opportunity at the big league, and it's great to see the Tasmanian get his opportunity over there in the States. He's been trying for many years to get a crack, and now this is his time to shine.
Absolutely. Darren, mate, what are your thoughts on Watkins Glen this weekend, mate?
Oh, one of America's great courses. They don't have a lot of them, but even despite them telling you otherwise, Watkins Glen's one of the great courses. We've got the sports cars racing in the other great one too, Elkhart Lake this weekend, but practice is over, and Carl Edwards leads after the timesheets in practice from Michael McDowell. If you watch the race on Monday morning our time, you're going to see a lot of names that you probably don't recognise, but this is the time when all the ringers come in, people like Boris Said and some of these other names as well. But Juan Pablo Montoya sitting in 4th spot. As I said, this is practice. Marcus was right up the top at one stage, currently 17th there, and Owen Kelly in 20th. So I'm sort of just waiting on qualifying to start appearing on my screens at the moment and see how they're doing on that front. But yeah, it's a great little track, and Marcus is great on this track.
I was going to say, mate, we were talking beforehand, you're a big feeling that Marcus Ambrose should do well this weekend.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sonoma, he should have done well. I mean, he's not. It's a bit of a bogey course for him, but Watkins Glen, as Lee pointed out, he's done extremely well especially in nationwide, the series below the Sprint Cup. But I'm just hoping he gets out there and knocks up a win for himself, because really his teammate this year has been outperforming him left, right, and centre.
Fair enough. Look, we'll move on to another topic now. Lee, I know during the week there's been a big move with Adrian Burgess, mate. Tell us all about this situation.
Yeah, Adrian Burgess announced he is effectively he was the man who ran Red Bull Racing Australia, or Triple Eight, over the last few years. He came from Dick Johnson Racing. He's formerly worked in Formula One and all sorts of varied categories overseas. He was the man behind the championship winning year at Dick Johnson Racing with James Courtney in 2010, and during the week it was announced that he has been effectively poached by Walkinshaw Racing, and he's left Red Bull Racing Australia immediately. Now he's on 6 months of gardening leave, you could call it. Get out of our factory because you're not taking any of our secrets with you.
Yep.
And he's going to Walkinshaw and teaming up with his old mate James Courtney. So, and of course Garth Tatner, but I oversee the whole operation at HRT. James and AV have worked closely for a number of years. They worked closely at Carl and F3. They work closely at Dick Johnson Racing. They're good mates here on the Gold Coast. And now we're teaming up together in a work environment at Holden Racing Team.
Lee, tell us. Sorry, mate. I was just going to say, tell us how big a deal is this for HRT to poach him, essentially?
Well, to put it in football terms, it's effectively like getting someone probably in the ilk of, say, Mick Malthouse to go from Collingwood to Carlton.
Right.
There you go.
Which happened.
Correct.
Mate, the other news too is Campbell Little is being seconded over to DJR from Ford Performance Racing. Campbell's obviously very highly thought of.
Yes, very highly thought of, and he still lives here on the Gold Coast. But if you read more into that one, you can see that FPR and DJR have sort of formed a bit of an alliance this year with Chaz Mostert out on loan from FPR to DJR. There's another couple of engineers who have sort of been FPR bred, but now running in DJR team. So there's probably more to come from that scenario, I would suspect.
Yeah, it is very, very interesting, isn't it? It's mind you got to see where these where FPR and DJR and that are going to sit as they get more information on what Ford are actually going to do, whether they're actually going to put any money into racing once they leave the country, so to speak. I mean, if you go on to, I think, Speed Cafe site, and even if you just type in Ford Focus or something like that, South African V8 series or whatever, there is I think it was a Ford Focus that was actually made here in Australia, and it was tested, I think, at Queensland Raceway a week or two ago, and it just looks sensational, Lee. I mean, I'd love to see our cars go down that path.
Yeah, Pace engineering, actually, Paul Seppernick, up here on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And he was actually the man who built the first car of the future car at Pace. I think it's Innovations, actually. Pace Innovations, and he's a South African born and bred, and has basically come up with this concept, and it is a mean looking and sounding machine.
Absolutely. Yeah. And look, before we just backtrack a little bit back there to the NASCAR world, mate, just on Tony Stewart, mate, he had a bit of a crash the other week, and he's out injured, mate. Tell us about the situation there.
Yes, Monday night, Tony's a big sprint car fan. He races sprint cars during the week or whenever he has an off weekend. And on Monday night, he was racing at the Front Row Challenge at Oskaloosa, which is a traditional lead-up to the Knoxville Nationals over in Iowa. He was coming through the pack. I think he was actually leading at the time and come up to a lap car that spun in front of him, and he basically T-boned. It was a major impact, and he was airlifted to the hospital with a broken, what now has come out as a broken leg, and he's had 2 operations on it already. This is his right leg that has been broken, and he therefore is out of Sprint Cup action for a little period of time. But he's currently running 11th in the points.
Yeah,
got 1 win to his name. So he still could make the chase, but not good for Tony Stewart.
Lee, that's really important, though, isn't it? I mean, he's sitting 11th in the chase. I mean, the chase is basically your top 10 point scorers plus 2 wild cards, which are the next best after next best point scorers after with wins under their belt as well. Now, with the cross entry rules and things that can happen. We saw it years ago with Dale Earnhardt when he had a terrible crash at Talladega. He can go out and basically just run a lap, come into the pits, change drivers and whatever points are scored go to him, as far as I know. Is that rule still in place in NASCAR?
Earlier this year when he had a damaged back.
Yeah.
Injured his back early in the year. He ran, the plan was for him to run sort of the first 20 or so laps, and then he had a backup driver just in case he needed to get out of the car. And I'll suspect that that's what will happen again later in the year. It does escape me who's taking Tony's place this weekend at Watkins Glen. It is a road course specialist, and I just don't have the name on top of my head, unfortunately, but he's still racking up the owner's points, but the driver's points will have to take time. And I suspect what you just said there, Darren, is exactly what will happen until he gets fully fit again.
Yeah, and he doesn't really have a choice in this, does he? From a team point of view, he's got to do this because his two teammates, Danica Patrick and I think Ryan Newman, who's not going to be there in that team next year, I mean, they just, despite Ryan actually having a win recently, they're just not there for him in terms of manufacturer's points and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, he needs to be the one doing the job. He's carrying that team.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, it's unfortunately it's one of those things where Tony, he loves racing, but that's one of the downsides of it, and it's rare that it happens. But it did happen for him, and he's laid up in hospital at the moment.
Look, we're running out of time here, guys, on Sports Scene. But before we let you go, Lee, the Knoxville National Sprint Car taking place this weekend. Tell us about it.
Yes, it's the unofficial World Championship of Sprint Cars being held this weekend in Knoxville, Iowa, over there. And Paul Morris is actually making his debut over there at what he described as the Daytona 500, the Indianapolis, and the Bathurst 1000 all rolled into one. You get the best of the best from all over the world coming to compete on this 1.5 mile dirt track. And, Brooke Tatnall was in there. Ian Madsen held out Donny Schatz in his qualifying heat race on Wednesday night. So Ian Madsen has made the show, I believe. The final is held tomorrow our time, and Donny Schatz is heading to 7 straight. But at the moment, he's starting from 4th in the B main, and he's got to finish inside the top 4 tomorrow our time to at least make the show. And then he's got a long way to go if he's going to make it 7 in a row.
That's it. All right, thank you very much for that, Lee. We'll leave it all there for today. Thanks again for being with us, as always.
Thanks, guys. All the best.
Always a pleasure, mate. We'll take a break here now on Sports Scene. When we come back, we'll get Paula Stewart on the line to talk us through the world of netball. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM, 12 minutes to 10, your next fresh news update. Coming up at the top of the hour, it's Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, all still here with you, taking you through to the end of the show. And joining us on the line to talk us through the world of netball, Sports Scene regular coach of the Golden South Jags, Paula Stewart. Welcome back to the show, Paula.
Thanks for having me back, everyone.
Always a pleasure, Paula. And look, there's plenty to talk about in the world of netball. Darren Madigan, there's been a little bit of a mass exodus coming from the Queensland Firebirds during the silly season for the netball, mate. Tell us all about it. A big name departure during the week.
Indeed, there's been a few going actually. Good morning, Paula. Well, let's take.
It's pretty exciting in the netball world at the moment.
It has, and we take a look at some of the things that have been going on around the place. Chelsea Pittman moved after we spoke last weekend. Oh, sorry, the last time we spoke. We've got Abby McCulloch is gone. There's a couple of other players. We lost Gretel Tippett as well, which is a huge loss, given that she would have probably moved into the spot that this lady has, Natalie Medhurst. I mean, wow.
That's the huge one for the Firebirds, is Nat Medhurst. As soon as Nat Medhurst came to the Queensland Firebirds, I know one person doesn't make a team, but she was the one that really turned the Firebirds around. And we were always lacking that goal attack, someone that was strong, experienced to help the whole attack end through. And yeah, she is going to be the biggest loss, I think, in any team that is around. So big pick up for Fever. Norma Plummer must have a smile from ear to ear, but huge loss for the Firebirds. Yeah, I think that's the biggest loss that Firebirds could have dreamed of. I mean, she is one player that we really needed the last few years, and when we got her, that's when Firebirds really turned the tables and started to look good. So it's a bit nerve-wracking at the moment just to see what other GAs are around with that experience, and I think they're nearly all taken.
Well, I think the question's got to be asked what's going on at the moment. I know there's a lot of movements every year, but I mean, to let Gretel Tippett go was a big, in my opinion, a stuff up. Just to put it bluntly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what was happening with Queensland netball. But, looking at from the outside, a young Queensland player who has only been playing for 2 years, who has picked up the game beautifully. She's probably one that I would have started to talk to her mid-season because she wasn't with anyone. She hadn't been with anyone, not even at that league. And, I would have had probably a few little chats to her and try to get her feel welcome in the team. But stuff happens. The Swifts did their work on her and they got her. So they moved in quickly, which was, good for them and good for Gretel that she got somewhere, but a bit disappointing that's not in Queensland.
Yeah, I can imagine how you're feeling because, nobody knows her game better than you. You have basically taken her from day one from a top-class international standard basketball player to playing at the top level in netball, and I can just imagine it. But let's take a look at the losses now that we have. We have Gretel Tippett gone. We have Chelsea Pittman gone over there to be coached by Norma Plummer, which she has mentioned in the press releases. That was one of the reasons why she went. Natalie Medhurst is gone to the West Coast Fever as well. Also going to the Swifts with Gretel is Abby McCulloch, which I think was announced during the week as well. So that's a big chunk of your roster gone. My great hope, and I know I harp on this, is that they will immediately look to the Queensland Champions Cup and players in there to pull players out of, and they don't. I think it's a disgrace, and I've said it a million times. Man, I don't want to get you in trouble, Paula, but I just can't believe that you wouldn't look at some of these amazing players in the QCC and not give them a shot at ANZ level.
The Queensland Fusion, they're away this weekend and they do have to probably win the 2 matches to make it in the top 4. But they have been up with them. The Victorian Fury team is a great team and they were up with them until the last 6 minutes of the game. So it looked like it was a bit of a blowout at the end. But there is some nice talent in that Queensland Fusion team. And, Steph Wood is a nice goal attack. She was at the AIS. She has had that experience. Maybe, people might say she might be a bit short, but her course craft is quite nice, her feeding, her timing, and she can deliver a high ball. So she would be one that I would actually look at, and that's what I'm hoping that they do. Sally Butters, she's a beautiful centre court player, but it looks like they've already got their centre court players now, which is just, it's great. The centre court players that Queensland Firebirds have picked, but they're nice. But again, a shame not to have a look at Sally Butters because I think that she has been one outstanding player as well, and she probably won't be able to get a crack again.
I guess the next best things to set the tongues rolling at the moment will be whether the hot rumour floating around that Claire McMinimum will come out of retirement and play. We also don't know what Kira's doing, Kira Tromp, so Kira Masood as she is now.
I think that's a pretty good rumour, that one. So, but I haven't heard too much with the Kira Tromp. So it won't surprise me at all if the announcement of Claire McMinimum will be with the Firebirds.
All right, let's look at these other movements. As we've mentioned earlier, Laura Langman's gone from the Waikato Bay of Plenty Magic to Northern Mystics. The big one over in New Zealand was Irene Van Dyke wanting to stay close to home, so she signed with the Central Pulse. Kath Cox has also been announced as going to the Melbourne Vixens, which makes sense. Shani Layton has moved from the Adelaide Thunderbirds to the New South Wales Swifts, and Caitlin Thwaites has moved from the Central Pulse also to the New South Wales Swifts to strengthen up their shooting ranks. Verity Simmons has gone from the West Coast Fever, and she is a pickup for the Queensland Firebirds. What do you think about Verity?
Oh, Verity is a beautiful player. Verity is she is nice, up-and-coming player, and I have no problems with all of that. But we have got a few up-and-coming players here in Queensland as well. So
yeah, don't we?
It's nice to probably just see a Queenslander have a go.
Yeah,
they seem to be giving a lot of Southerners a bit of a go, and they have proved themselves. Nothing wrong with that. They have come in, proved themselves. But a big believer in let's just pick one or two Queenslanders in the Queensland Firebirds would be nice.
That's absolutely right. And look, as I've said publicly for a long time now, I think people have got the wrong idea about me being too parochial about Queensland. My beef is not about picking Queensland players in the Firebirds. It's about picking players from the Queensland Champions Cup. I don't care if they're Victorian, South Australian, whatever, playing in that comp, but I want to see us using that competition as a selection tool for the Firebirds. I don't understand why it's not. It's moving away from the ANZ Championship, Paul, looking at the Queensland Fusion this weekend in the ANL. They've got, today they've got the Tassie Spirit, and tomorrow they'll have the New South Wales Waratahs also playing down in Tasmania, an early game at 10 a.m. Now, at the moment, we're sitting in sorry, that's last week's thing. I'm just trying to look at this ladder.
Tied fifth, I think it is. So
yeah.
Once you've got to realise is the AIS isn't coming in third, and with the AIS, this is their last weekend before they travel over to Glasgow. So what they're doing is then the AIS, even though the points counted, if you win or lose against them, they're then not valid for the finals.
Yep.
There's a lead-up game for them to go over to Glasgow.
All right.
So whoever comes in fifth will then take up the fourth position to play in the semis and finals. That's why Queensland Fusion, I think if we can do well this weekend and get in that top four, that's got a good crack to have a go, and that's what I'm really hoping. Kylie Sampson and the team, I think they had one bad weekend, and that happens. And it's just a shame that it was against the two Victorian teams.
All right.
So, I'm really hoping, that they do make the top four. I think they've got a very good chance of making the top four.
Yep.
And then they can go from there.
All right, we're just coming up a bit short on time. I'll just run through this ladder. The two Victorian teams at the top of the ladder, AIS, then you've got the Queensland Fusion and the New South Wales Waratahs, Southern Force, Western Sting, New South Wales Blues, Tassie Spirit, Territory Storm and the Canberra Darters making up the rest of the comp. We should point out too that Gretel Tippett has made the Australian Fast 5 team as well as the 21 and under side, and we'll go through that whole team and everything again next week. Paula, thank you for joining us once again this week, and we'll have a chat to you again next week, and we'll go through these Australian sides that are going over to Glasgow.
Okay, my pleasure, Darren. See you later, everyone.
Absolute pleasure to have you as always, Paula. We've got to wrap it up there here on Sports Scene. Very quickly, Ethan, give us a tip for the weekend.
The Aussies to get the fourth test over there in England.
What about you, Darren?
Richmond to win again.
Again, that a boy. I'm going to go out on a limb and say a batsman other than Michael Clarke will get a century for the Aussies in the next innings. That's a real brave tip, that one. We've got to go to the news here on Sports Scene. Thanks again for being with us. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Make sure you're listening. Stay with us on 101 FM.